Welcome back to the Solid Verbal, boys and girls. My name is Ty Hildenbrandt, that fine gentleman over there. The one, the only, the ravishing Dan Rubenstein on Valentine's Day, sir.
Yeah.
Welcome back to the show. How are you?
I'm great. I'm relieved we get to connect today because not too many people know this about you, but you are a hopeless romantic.
Always.
You are thoughtful. You are sensitive, sensual, all of the adjectives. I just learned these things over the years, picking up crumbs of your personality because you can be a little bit guarded, right? You don't want to let the people in. You're just showing the college football side of your personality. But as we connect college football to marriage, to relationships, to anything in the realm of Valentine's Day, I think this is where you shine because everybody that has told me about you, considerate, thoughtful, looks you dead in the eye, tells you what he thinks, and is always thinking of you. And so that's the Ty Hildenbrandt I think everybody wants to get to know today. Hey, sorry for the quick interruption, but it'd be incredible if you considered subscribing to the Solid Verbal YouTube channel right down below. Yes?
You left out generous lover, which you usually add in that
I know.
spot.
I was going back and forth as I was talking, and I was like, this is inappropriate. And you know that I am considerate of people driving in minivans with cars, not wanting to answer questions about what does that mean when Dan says Ty is a generous lover. But that's the reputation, at least.
It only took you like 15 years to figure out that that's inappropriate. So I think
look, there are Reddit threads about you on that topic. So it's wild. It's great.
I think it shows that we can grow.
Yeah, of course.
As individuals, and that is sort of the theme of this episode. This is our annual How's Your Marriage episode. I think we discussed maybe a bit of a bonus portion that goes out on Patreon.
Sure.
After the final bell for the public portion of this episode. But what we do is we take a look at coaches around college football, and we are evaluating the state of some of these marriages. You've got 4 coaches. I've got 4 coaches. It was one of our favorite episodes that we did last year.
I wrote down like 11, by the way, in case we need more, because I've just got a lot of sort of borderline unfounded opinions about these marriages.
Do I have permission to be mean in this episode?
If you support it, if you show your work. Because
if we are looking at college football coaches and their jobs as a marriage, I don't know how you and Jody with an I are, but
right.
I'm not going to say we're judgmental over here at the Hildenbrandt residence. We try not to be. But on occasion, there is a marriage that perhaps we choose to analyze in terms that aren't always the kindest.
So you're talking about that you will be like the Jeff Schwartz with the telestrator about somebody else's marriage. You'll highlight certain elements and you will break it down. You're Dan Orlovsky with the touchscreen, right? Looking at perhaps some acquaintances and how their relationships may or may not be going.
Draw some assumptions on occasion. Solid wife Kate does not like to do that.
Okay.
I'm not going to say I like to do it. I just can't resist.
Sure.
It just happens, right?
Yeah,
I'm an analytical creature, Dan. That's who I am.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Fair enough. I mean, look, it's hard to help yourself sometimes when some things are just staring you in the face, either at a dinner party or at 3:30 Eastern on CBS, right? Sometimes you just have to be like, I don't like this body language going on with Eli Drinkwitz right now.
Yeah.
And I think it's worth analysis. That's why we're doing it's our biannual How's Your Marriage episode?
I think so. I think that's what this is.
It's at least our second. I love it.
Solidverbal@gmail.com, of course, is the email. Write in, let us know your thoughts. We're on social media. We're also at verballers.com. That's the bonus Patreon feed. Ad-free episodes, bonus content, a bunch of perks going on in the off-season. Stop on by if you want to learn more about supporting what Dan and I do. Your donations, your subscriptions go a long way towards keeping things afloat.
Yeah, and if you hear an iPhone alarm in about a minute or in about 26 minutes, that's just my pizza dough alarm. I don't know if, Ty, you plan on editing this out of the episode, but,
I mean, maybe.
I think relationships and marriages are about honesty, being forthright. That's all.
Give me a sound. I don't care, whatever sound you've got.
We're just normal men.
Thank you.
We're just normal men.
Let's talk about James Franklin. Let's talk about Penn State.
Okay.
Let's talk about this marriage if we could. It's something I happen to know a lot about. It's a marriage I have been evaluating now for the last 10 years.
So is this a marriage between James Franklin and Penn State or James Franklin and Penn State fans?
It's a marriage between all of the above.
Okay.
All of the above. I tend to think of these marriages more from the standpoint of a coach relative to the fan base.
Yeah.
Right? Because marriages are all about expectations. You know this.
Mm-hmm.
It's about expectations. And I think James Franklin finds himself in a really interesting marriage at the moment here, making about $8.5 million a year. He's been at Penn State for 10 seasons. He finished with at least 10 wins 5 times. So done pretty well for himself.
It's a good amount.
Has only won the conference once, though, and I think that's where the fan base goes when they start trying to evaluate James Franklin. James Franklin is the partner that does a lot right, but still frustratingly does the same things wrong as he always has.
I see that.
He gets a lot of those quips from his partner asking, do you listen to what I'm saying? Or does it go in one ear and out the other?
Yeah.
That is the state of affairs at Penn State with his relationship with the fan base. People will go first to James Franklin, some of the in-game decisions. People will go next to and have gone next to James Franklin having the inability to win the big game, notably over Ohio State and Michigan. It was there this year. It was there.
I agree.
This was supposed to be the year, wasn't it? This was supposed to be the year when James Franklin took the next step with the hotshot quarterback, with the offensive line that has come a long way, a first rounder on the line with
a ton of experience on defense returning. Yeah.
A ton of experience on defense with 2 dynamic backs. I focused mainly on the offense because the defense is never really in question. This was the year that the offense is going to take that big step forward. And you know what we got from the offense this year?
What's that?
That's what we got. They stunk. We talked on the last episode with Andy Staples about how he was sort of lulled into this false sense of security that the offense was going to take strides, especially after that showing against Iowa.
Yeah.
The Iowa defense. And what was it? 31-0 at home. And Drew Aller making the pro throws. That's what we got from Penn State this past season. So what do they do in the offseason? Well, they get rid of Mike Yurcich. They bring up Andy Kotelnicki. I hope I said that right, from Kansas, who Andy Staples described as a bit of a mad scientist. I hope it's as fun as he described. I really do. Here is what I would call out, given the state of affairs at Penn State with James Franklin as we forge ahead now through Valentine's Day and into 2024. There is no coach in America that benefits more from the expanded playoff and conference realignment than James Franklin.
Yeah.
Nobody. It comes at the absolute perfect time for him because his stock as a coach has sort of plateaued. I don't know if he wants to pursue other jobs or not, other marriages. That's, probably a conversation for a different episode. But his path to a conference title, his path to a playoff has been blocked by 2 teams, the aforementioned Michigan Wolverines and Ohio State Buckeyes. This year, the schedule works well. More teams in the conference. Penn State's at home against Ohio State in early November. But I've got big questions about the other quote-unquote big guns on this schedule. At USC, who knows what version of USC we're going to get. USC will be fine, I'm sure, but no more Caleb Williams, right? Who's going to be the trigger man? At Wisconsin, I don't, again, who knows? TVD, is he the quarterback? At Minnesota, I'll get to PJ Fleck in a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
So
how's the marriage though? What like if you're looking at it's basically that, not to interrupt, but I'm interrupting. James Franklin it's been a long-term marriage. There's been a lot of highs, right? Even if it hasn't been the highest of highs, like you got to respect, he's been loyal, even if he flirts at the grocery store. Let's be real.
A little bit.
James Franklin
flirts.
in by the cantaloupe. He'll be flirty. We'll see if it actually means anything. And yes, the Ohio State and Michigan thing, it's like he's still getting around to calling the HVAC guy, right? It's not comfortable in that house all the time.
No.
Because James Franklin promises he's going to call the HVAC people, and winter, it's still a little cold. Summer, it gets a little bit too steamy, and you said you'd take care of it, but James Franklin's, no, I got this. I got this. But he doesn't. He still doesn't have that. And so there's growing frustration, but look, the kids are great, right? The mortgage is paid off. There's a lot to love about this marriage.
There's a lot to love, and I think in general, we come back to, if not James, then who in this marriage?
Sure.
Right? Yeah, he leaves you a bit wanting.
Mm-hmm.
But do you really want to upset the apple cart at this point?
Yeah.
Things are going pretty well.
Look, you're 57 and haven't been single in a while.
I know.
Who knows what's out there?
You don't want to be out there, man.
And you live a little bit off the beaten path. Let's be real. Like, not a ton of suitors in this moment. Okay.
No,
I think that's fair.
Are you talking about me or are you talking about James, by the way?
Who's to say?
Who's to say? Okay, I'm just making sure. Here's my point.
You're a
with
different
this.
generation than I am, yeah.
How dare you? Here is my point. My point is this. This episode next year, when we do this in the year of our Lord 2025, James Franklin needs to be one of the coaches that we call out. He needs to be one that we need to reassess the state of the marriage, because he should be in the playoff in 2024 with this roster.
Yeah, look, he's the Snapple of the Big Ten, right? Wasn't their old tagline like we're number 3, between after Coke and Pepsi? And they're the perennial 9th best team in America, and that'll get you in. Good job, Snapple.
This should be a marriage that goes to a different place in 2024. And
do you think he's calling the HVAC guy?
Yeah, he's finally going to call the HVAC guy. James Franklin should get to a playoff in 2024. Okay. And the conversation should change for him from trying to win a conference, which I don't know if anyone's going to care about conference titles in the world of the playoff.
Yeah.
And it should shift from, are you beating Michigan, Ohio State? Are you winning the Big Ten? To, are you getting into the playoff and eventually are you winning a game? Because there's a good chance Beaver Stadium's hosting a playoff game at some point in the near future. And if you ain't winning that game, then the marriage may be a little bit more frayed. That is the state of affairs at Penn State.
Let's go to Deion Sanders.
Ooh, give me a
Let's
sound.
go.
Do you have the disorder surge sound?
Let's see. What do I have?
Okay. All right. I get that.
Could be looming disaster for others. Could be looming disaster for Deion in Colorado. Here's what I wrote down about.
Yeah, here's what I think of first, and you can tell me if maybe we're on the
Please.
same plane. Ever since Deion got there, we've been wondering if he wants to leave.
Yes.
And he says he doesn't.
Yeah.
And I don't know how many times he has to say that he doesn't want to leave before people will actually believe him. It's only been a year, though.
Right. Like, he's trying to silence everybody who's saying it's just a green card marriage, right? That it's just an opportunity to get into the show.
Okay.
From a smaller Jackson State. And now he's in a power conference. Now the Big 12, formerly a Pac-12 head coach. You're right. You're absolutely right, Ty. And look, the highs are incredibly high. The lows have been pretty low. There's probably too many videos that are posted to TikTok about, how great the marriage is. And you're like, why are they so insistent? Why aren't they just being married? Why do they have to broadcast, to the world how great the marriage is?
Is this a situation where there is too much social media activity?
Well, it's just like they're showing their outfits before date night all the time. You're just like, you could just go out on a date. You could just recruit. there's by the way, on that, you get the sense that more people than usual are coming in and out of that house, and you don't want to ask too many questions.
Yeah.
But you're like, that's weird. They've only been married a year.
Warren Sapp's here. That's different.
Warren Sapp is involved. You hear Warren Sapp late at night and you wonder what's going on. You want it to work out, but you also kind of remember him flirting with your friend Megan at that party. And you're like, that's weird. That's off. But look, there's a very specific vibe to this marriage, and that's okay. Everybody's entitled to go about their own marital business their way. And it might seem unorthodox to some, and certainly they're broadcasting that to anybody who will listen at dinner parties, out and about, at the bowling alley, at the tennis club, whatever.
Always at the bowling alley.
They're all over each other.
Mm-hmm.
But you almost wonder, like, man, it's just a lot to handle. And how long could this possibly last like this? Like, there's no pace to it. And that's the sense I get about the Colorado Deion Sanders marriage. And look, Colorado is not used to dating somebody with this kind of outsized personality, let alone being married to them. And, it's a new city. It's a new town for Deion. And he's just excited about, going to restaurants, going to parties. But you're just like, man, it's a lot all at once. Mm-hmm. And you want to say, can they get to 5 years? Isn't this going to be exhausting in 4 years and 8 years? And that's the kind of marriage I see Deion in Colorado in right now.
I have a friend. It's more of
like
an
a
acquaintance.
weirdly public TikTok marriage.
I have a friend. It's more of an acquaintance at this point.
Yeah.
Who has graduated from Facebook to LinkedIn. And by that I mean,
oversharing?
Yeah, has his own business.
Yeah.
And very much one of those deals where his sort of personal life is his brand, but is the only guy that I am connected to on LinkedIn who chooses to share all of those nitty-gritty relationship details, all of the milestones, all of the kids' birthdays, uses LinkedIn as if it were Facebook, and uses Facebook and uses LinkedIn generally as if it were Twitter. Yeah. Really overshares in a spot that you would not expect it. I'm getting some notes of that as you described Deion.
Yeah. I think that's totally true, where marriage takes work, right? It absolutely takes work. All relationships take work. And it just seems like the work involved in this one is for show, not necessarily grinding behind the scenes. You interpret that word how you like.
Does it make it to 5 years?
And I think it burns out. And that's okay, right? Not all relationships, not all marriages are meant to last. And, if both parties are on the same page, then there's a certain amount of respect that I have to give. Just as long as both parties are on the same page, again, with people coming in and out of that house at all hours. If everybody's on the same page, terrific. Vaya con Dios.
That's all. Vaya con Dios. Give me another sound. You got one at the ready?
I don't
That's
know why
perfect.
I played that.
That's perfect.
What do you have?
Mario Cristobal, Miami.
Yeah. Yeah.
We saw a lot of that.
Is this an arranged marriage? Is that where you're going with this?
This is an arranged marriage. This is one of those high school sweetheart situations that plays really well on Facebook.
Sure.
You get the annual post back to when they were going to the 9th grade
Throwback.
dance together.
Junior prom. Yep.
Yeah, like we've aged, but we still got it for each other. One of those deals.
All the comments like, you haven't aged at all. What's your secret? Yeah, continue.
Yeah. 12 and 13 in 2 years at Miami. Made a bowl game this year, but lost to Rutgers. One of those deals they're still working through, I suppose. It's also one of those deals where from the outside and probably from the inside, you can't possibly imagine a divorce. Like, it hasn't gone exactly as well as expected from afar.
The families get along with each other. There's so much around it that's working.
There's so much around it, you can't possibly imagine a world in which 5 years from now, this is no longer.
Right.
And I'll be honest, as somebody who does this now for a living, I kind of can't imagine it either.
Right.
Even with all the writing on the wall, like, and even all the stuff that you have said about Mario.
Yeah.
I can't imagine a world in which he is not the coach at Miami. It would take something cataclysmic for this marriage to end, especially with what they're paying. I mean, they're paying him. He's one of the highest paid coaches in America. He's getting like at least $8 million a year. At least that's what they report, right? It could be higher than that. So recruiting is strong. Transfer portal recruiting is very strong. Coaches want to coach there. It seems like a program willing to invest. It certainly does not seem like the situation where they would ever entertain the notion of firing one of their own. Somebody who truly is a callback to that Miami swagger that they have been trying to recapture all these years.
Yeah.
I can't ever see them moving on from him. And I don't think he's ever going to want to move on from them. So I just worry that there will be a moment in time in which, and maybe it's 2 years from now, Miami is still this version of Miami, sort of stuck in the mud, not really doing much other than treading water. And we just have the same conversation about the Hurricanes year in and year out. Like, they're not horrible. They're not as good as folks want.
Right.
And as long as everything is status quo, and as long as recruiting provides that element of hopium every offseason, we're cool. We're cool until we're not.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think they have matching tattoos, which is like, I don't know, what are you supposed to do if this doesn't work out? This was supposed to be forever. You have the matching like tramp stamps. This has to work. And they've got like the matching vanity license plates. Like they're all in on being together for the long term.
The thing here in Eastern Pennsylvania, our version of that has been the folks that have the matching like NASCAR racing jackets.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I've seen that on many occasions where it's not always NASCAR. NASCAR maybe is the extreme example.
Yeah.
But I've seen it a lot where you get the matching like outfits. They start to dress alike.
Yeah, we'll say Mario in Miami, they're doing like the coordinated Halloween costumes every year. Like one of them is Pooh Bear and the other's the pot of honey, right? There's just so much there. I don't know if that's an actual thing. But you know what I'm talking about, right?
Yeah, I get it. And so I just, I mean, you have studied at Mario Cristobal University and probably could speak more to this marriage than I could. Is this marriage better than the last marriage he was in?
Not at the moment. Not at the moment, right? It's a little bit too showy. Like they moved into a house. There's money there. You know, they redid the pool, they redid the yards, but there's always like there's a leak in the pool. There's something wrong with all the cars. Like the mailbox fell over. It's the nicest mailbox on the block, but it keeps falling over. You're like, that shouldn't happen. And so the acquisition of things has been great from Mario Cristobal in this marriage. Like he's out there being showy with it, but everything's like the chandelier fell in the middle of the night. You're like, who did you get to hang that chandelier? And it was just like Mario's brother. It's a little bit too local. And so there's a lot invested in it, as we talked about with your matching NASCAR jackets. And I think Miami fans, to go more literal than analogous, whatever, Miami fans are desperate for this to work. Miami fans are, and I mean this as a compliment, they are one of the most dug-in fan bases, not just with Mario Cristobal, but if you say anything bad about like the size of the crowd in their stadium, like they're quick to snap back at you. They are all in defending their turf, all in defending like Mario's finally getting his roster to where he wants it to be. Mario's finally getting his coaching staff to where it wants to be. There was a lot to clean up from the Manny Diaz era and the Mark Richt era, whatever. And, you know, he always said that this was going to take time. And so I respect on a certain level that whether or not Miami fans exist in reality, that it seems like a good chunk of them are unwavering in their belief.
And I don't think a lot of that is wrong.
And maybe that's a February thing, though.
I think
that's January, February.
I think there is validity to most of what you just said there.
Okay.
I do think it's a fixer-upper situation. It's going to take a little bit. And I do think to get his roster and his style of football in place, it's going to take a little bit. You know, I mean, Mario plays the gorilla ball. He wants to be physical at the point of attack. He wants to sort of ground and pound and beat your brains in. And I think part of the disappointment for me is that I thought it was going to happen more last year. It seemed like the pieces were in place for that to go down last season, and it kind of didn't. And they still had strife at quarterback, and they still felt like a team that wasn't very organized. And so
they've planned some trips, Ty. There's a lot to look forward to, right? They've planned trips. They've made some reservations. They're getting a couple's pedicure. Like there's a lot there's big plans with this couple.
I think there's big plans. And so I am optimistic that ultimately we will be talking about it in a different light.
Good.
But at least $8 million a year to lose to Rutgers in a bowl game in year 2.
Yeah.
people are starting to ask questions, you know? Some of the mutual friends on Facebook are DMing each other, just wondering like, hey, what do you think's going on there?
You're on Facebook more than I am. I don't know all of these references. You can DM mutual friends on Facebook?
I think I'm mixing social media platforms, Dan. That's how much I'm on Facebook these days.
You're good. You will catch those unwavering fans, though, on social media saying things like, Oregon people may have been right after the Georgia Tech game, after the Middle Tennessee game.
Yeah.
And even those people remember some of those grocery store arguments. So you ready for mine, or do you have any more Mario Cristobal?
Please go.
All right. My next one is, let's go SEC. Let's go Lane Kiffin.
Oh.
Okay? Things at Ole Miss. I think things are pretty great in the Lane Kiffin-Ole Miss marriage. Now, look, there's the flirtation with Auburn, a year ago. But otherwise, I just think sometimes in a marriage, if money's not an issue, which it definitely doesn't seem to be at Ole Miss, definitely doesn't seem to be with the collectives, with NIL, money isn't everything, but that negates one sore spot in a relationship, in a marriage, that you're not arguing about money, you're not having money as a concern. Look, is Lane Kiffin the strongest husband? Is he the smartest husband, the richest husband? No. But you almost always, have a good time with Lane in a relationship.
Always.
And he's been around the block. Let's not pretend like you are high school sweethearts. But he's learned some lessons about love and relationships along the way. And sure, he's a bit older than his spouse, let's say. But maybe keeping him young is just what he needed in a partner, Ty. Sometimes you have to be self-aware. And I think there's a decent amount of self-awareness with Lane Kiffin and Ole Miss. And I think Ole Miss, the school, the athletic department, the fan base, appreciates the attempts that Lane Kiffin is making to make this relationship work, right? And going after better coaches, especially on defense, going after, guys in the portal, doing whatever it takes, whether it's counseling, whether it's making her breakfast, whatever it takes. I think Lane Kiffin is into this relationship. You like that? Come to the sip? Relationship. So I'm good with it, Ty. I think the relationship is strong. I think there's fire there. And I think the outlook is they're always going to be a fun hang at a backyard cookout.
I think he's cool without being manufactured cool.
Okay.
I think he is legitimately cool. And not like the cool substitute teacher vibe. Not the Dabo Sweeney vibe. He's just like, he gets it. He's gotten older. He's gotten more mature. We followed him through the years. He doesn't use social media incorrectly. He kind of gets it. Right. He's in touch with those around him. And I agree. Fun at a picnic. I agree. A strong marriage.
Yeah.
And I think it gets stronger this year because Ole Miss is loaded up. We've talked a lot about these other schools, Ohio State and whoever else, but Ole Miss is right there, man. Ole Miss has done well for itself in the portal. And I think, especially now, given the void of things in the SEC and the SEC West in particular.
Sure.
Like, if Ole Miss isn't in the playoff.
Whatever the SEC West actually looks like now, whatever divisions actually look like now.
Who knows? I mean, it's all kind of jumbled together at this point, right? But
yeah.
Just that grouping of teams, let's say, even if it's not labeled the same way, that has kind of stood in the path of Lane Kiffin and Ole Miss maybe being more of a presence in the SEC and in the national conversation.
Yeah.
There's a big old void there now with Saban walking out and with Alabama losing 30 guys, whatever the hell it was in the portal. I think it's a really strong marriage. I think great things are to come. Speaking of planning trips and planning expeditions, like
sure.
This is where it's at right now in the SEC.
Yeah, look, the neighbor in Alabama that had all of the best parties late into the night, keeping you awake, just moved away. And you come into some cash, you're going to knock that house down. You're going to buy that property, and you're going to make a huge yard for yourself.
Yep.
That's great.
Man, what a show of force to knock down the neighbor's house.
Yes.
Wow.
And you're just using it to like put in a sport court or something. You're not even building a new property.
It's just pickleball.
It's just a party lot. Yeah, you're playing pickleball.
Melissa. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
Who's your next? Next coach.
PJ Fleck.
Oh, man. Okay.
Making about $6 million.
Yeah.
Reportedly was just interviewed for the UCLA gig down in Cabo. I am hesitant to judge the state of this marriage because I don't know if I fully understand the expectations for Minnesota football.
Right.
I have picked up a little bit of everything in our interaction with Minnesota fans. We've got some loyal Minnesota fans that listen to the show, that write into the show. Shout out Will in Minnesota.
I think Will in Minnesota is a Virginia fan, though, to be clear.
Also a Virginia fan, but also pays attention to Minnesota. Yeah, I mean, we've had sort of, I think, a little bit of everything from folks that follow Minnesota football here. And this reminds me of the kind of marriage where you've got like one side of it that's always dressing up way more than the other. And nobody's quite sure why. Like, PJ might be on Tinder, but just to browse. Always swipes in the wrong direction. You know, he's not actually looking to use the app the way people use the app. He needs that excitement. You know?
Yeah.
If James Franklin benefits from the changing dynamics of college football, PJ Fleck certainly does not. He certainly does not. He's been at Minnesota 7 years. He won an Outback Bowl once. That was fun.
Mm-hmm.
Won the Big Ten West, I think, the same year in 2019 or so.
Yeah.
But we keep coming back to the operative question of this marriage, which is, do they make each other better? The Big Ten West made everybody a little bit better.
Yes.
And I think he has benefited from that. But now that even that changes in 2024, I find myself asking a lot, is there a symbiotic relationship here that truly is mutually beneficial? Because I don't think PJ Fleck stock has gone up. I found it odd that UCLA would want to talk to him. I mean, maybe I shouldn't, but I don't feel like PJ Fleck's stock has done much since he got there, or at least outside of the first couple seasons. And I don't
he's
feel
a big
like
personality, though, right? In LA, as the second biggest school, in the same way that like the Chargers went after Jim Harbaugh, where
but Harbaugh went
no
to
Charger
a Super
fans.
Bowl. Harbaugh went to like 3 or 4 conference championship
No,
games.
what I'm saying is I think the UCLA appeal in PJ Fleck is that he's a big personality. There are very few UCLA football fans watch a UCLA game, right? There are very few UCLA football fans who are pouring into the Rose Bowl each Saturday. And so when you have a bigger personality, an outsized personality like PJ Fleck, even with all of his like row the boat stuff, that he will attract attention in an attention-starved city. And so that's I think the appeal there.
Okay. Has he made Minnesota better?
I mean, from some of the lows and the way that, Jerry Kill, Tracy Clay's era ended, he was certainly a breath of fresh air, and their highs were higher. Their highs have been higher under PJ Fleck, beating Penn State the way that they did in 2019. Those 2 NFL receivers, Tyler Anderson, Rashad Bateman, like there has been star power, legitimate star power at Minnesota. Even leaving Minnesota, Bucky Irving started his career at Minnesota, now might be the first running back off the board in the NFL draft. So talent evaluation, I think, has been better. I think Rashad Bateman's from Georgia. So, like, the geographic pull of the Gophers has been better. So there's a lot to like about the highs of Minnesota. Yes, as a program, you have a better sense for PJ Fleck's vibe and deal and personality than you've had for a Minnesota coach ever in quite some time anyway. And that's a big deal.
He is a personality. And, if we're going to talk about the benefits of hiring Dion at Colorado, we could talk about that a little bit with hiring a guy like a Fleck to Minnesota. It is not necessarily a program that has been associated with big personalities. It just isn't. And
no,
they have shown, I think, over the course of the last decade or so, they're willing to invest in the program. They built a damn new stadium, right? So they want to be in that conversation, and they're obviously paying Fleck accordingly. But I'm worried about what it looks like now as things change in the Big Ten, because the schedule, I think, over the long haul, I haven't looked at it this coming season, admittedly, but over the long haul, there are going to be fewer gimmies on that schedule now. You don't have to play
Right.
Illinois. You don't have to play some of the Nebraska, some of these teams every year that you maybe were counting on for wins. I don't even know if those teams are the right examples, but you get my point.
So you're sort of saying like the act is wearing a little bit thin, right? That the act is not matching the results.
I have always felt like PJ was a bit of a snake oil salesman.
Okay.
I've always felt like
he always has a new get rich quick scheme, and you, the partner in this relationship, have to endure some of the highs and a lot of the lows.
Yeah, like I told you this story before, but like my dad tried to patent the idea of hanging a tennis ball at the front of your garage so you knew when your car was the full way in when the tennis ball would hit.
The first person to come up with it, yeah.
He tried to patent that. My mom tells that story. Like PJ maybe has a better version of that.
He has that vibe.
He has a little bit of that vibe, and I worry about that. I worry about that, and I like Minnesota as a program. I want Minnesota as a program to be better. And it bothers me that it's not gotten there yet, especially given what we've seen the last 2 seasons, where you and I have had a conversation many a time on this show. Like, did they miss their window? Did they miss their window to do a little bit more with this team? And that, I don't know.
There's something about Minnesota as like the Utah of the Big Ten, where it's like they're not amazing at everything, but if you're not bringing your A game to Minneapolis, you're just going to lose. They're too solid in too many places. And they became legitimately very good in 2019, but the best of Minnesota throughout the years has largely come on defense, has largely come with a high level of competence on offense, whether it's just running the ball, it's not explosive. The defense is there. We saw that, in the years pre-PJ Fleck. But yeah, we've become too incompetent on offense to feel good about the row the boat. Are you elite today? Are you elite every morning?
Wasn't last season supposed to be the season where we turned the Greek rifle, or as we call him, the Greek freak, Ethan Kaliakmanis?
Mm-hmm.
We were going to turn him loose, baby. This was going to be a passing. It wasn't.
Nope.
Speaking of another one in the Big Ten where it was, and that's just really disappointing. It feels like there is more meat on the bone there. And I don't know, I don't know if the added pressure of a tougher schedule and a more competitive conference is going to make Minnesota and PJ Fleck into a better situation. I would agree that the floor has raised, and that is good, because Minnesota for a good long time was not good at all. So they're at least now a consistent bowl team for the most part.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, but that big personality has not yet delivered in the way that I would have hoped.
Real quick, if you like the video, please consider subscribing to the full podcast at solidverbal.com, Apple, Spotify, wherever you listen to podcasts. All the links are down below in the description. I agree.
Who do you got next?
All right. I have Sonny Dykes in the Big 12. My God, Ty, the honeymoon. Things were fiery in Bali, right? Couldn't keep their hands off of each other. And why not?
I'm never going to be able to look at Sonny Dykes the same after you said that. Continue.
Sonny Dykes and TCU destroyed that hotel room.
Okay.
That suite in Bali. You know what I'm talking about, Ty.
Uh-huh.
People knew they'd be good for each other. Sonny Dykes at SMU right beforehand. But from that honeymoon, they now have triplets, and they don't have a plan. They're trying everything. They're hiring new position coaches. They're hiring new coordinators. It's not going super well. The childcare hasn't been incredible.
I have a friend that sort of did this very thing. Continue.
Really?
Kind of.
It's just unclear. What's the plan here?
Yeah.
They're working on solutions. They know solutions are needed. Fire's not gone. It's just not what it was in Bali, Ty.
Right.
It's just not what it was. And maybe it was because things were so smooth right away. They inherited a beautiful house from some long-lost relative who passed away, and they're like, oh my God, look at all this. It's a full, there's cars, there's everything is taken care of. They inherit so much, this couple.
Are you describing a relationship that is more in lust than in love?
I don't know if it's more in lust than in love, because I think there is potential to build something here. But I think because it was so fiery so early that you're chasing something, which isn't always the best way to approach a long-term relationship. And I think they know this, but they're trying to figure this out with triplets. And it's, you're down on sleep. Like, there's weird applesauce everywhere. Like, things just went so downhill so quickly in terms of the high highs. It was a tough pregnancy. Obviously triplets, the belly's expanding like crazy. Like, there's just, things got so real in this marriage so quickly. That's all.
Yeah.
I think the marriage is fine. I think both sides appreciate each other, but there is definitely like a growing shadow about how are we going to get through this?
Yeah.
A lot of new conference members. You're not popping as one of the like powers at the moment because of the down year in 2023. Quarterback is an open question. Defense is an open question with the changes there. So I don't think the marriage is in a bad state, but there's definitely a need to approach some of these issues.
There are some issues there.
Yeah.
There are some issues there.
But look, maybe you get back to Bali eventually. Right? Down the line, the kids have grown up a little bit. It's a long flight, and maybe you rekindle some of that magic then. But for right now, let's just focus on putting one foot in front of the other. Let's get through today.
Yeah.
That's all.
You're describing a little bit of like what could be White Lotus season 4.
Sonny Dykes in Bali?
Where they go to try and, rekindle the relationship.
Yeah.
And then something ghastly happens. Could see that. Could see that happening. Not rooting for it.
That honeymoon. Whew.
In Bali.
And there were
Dykes,
signs. Yeah. There were signs that, there was some curves ahead, some uneven terrain, but even still, how do you look back on that with nothing but fondness?
No, I mean, it ran a little hot in the beginning, didn't it? It really did.
That's what I'm saying.
We didn't see that coming.
Who do you have next?
My last one that I have on my list is Pat Narduzzi.
Oh, okay.
I think this is a loving marriage. I really do. I think this is a loving marriage.
Okay.
I think Pat Narduzzi is perfect for Pitt. I think he's hard-nosed. He's blue-collared. He's outspoken, not afraid to speak his mind. He is being paid handsomely. He's being paid almost $5 million, at least he was last season. It was not a good year in Pittsburgh last year, 3-9. But overall, 65-50 in 9 seasons at Pitt. Been to a bowl 6 times, won the conference once back in the year of Kenny Pickett. The schedule this season is kind of beautiful for Pitt. Mm-hmm. They could be one of those teams that is 7-5 caliber, but ends up 10-2 in on the fringes of the playoff conversation because of the schedule. I think we have come to know Pat Narduzzi as a guy who just sort of figures it out. And that was part of the appeal of last season, right? We talked about this on our last episode as well, where you tend to give Pat Narduzzi the benefit of the doubt in the relationship because he just MacGyvers his way through it, man. He figures things out. He's not afraid to get his hands dirty, and he is used to doing more with less. He is used to pumping out premier talent along that defensive line. He is used to getting at least a higher level of output from his offense. He's used to just this situation where it feels like he shouldn't be doing things as well as he does, and he figures it out. Last year it didn't work. But over the long haul, we still tend to give him that benefit of the doubt. And I think Pitt, if we're being honest, realizes the situation that they're in. They realize that they might not be the destination for the top recruits in the world, that they might need to work the portal, that they might need to deal with portal losses, that they might need to develop from within. Certainly, some of the dynamics of the new situation have been frustrating for Narduzzi. He said as much. Yeah. He's not afraid to call out other marriages. But I think he's a realist. I think he knows who he is. And I think at the end of the day, his honesty goes a long way in keeping that marriage fresh. So despite the fact that the results were not there a year ago, I still think this is a really good situation.
He's just very specific. He's just so super specific, and the specificity is developing defensive talent, beating teams unprepared to beat a quality team, and maybe, yes, there's going to be that downturn every so often. There's not going to be a lot of flash to Pat Narduzzi, but he knows how to fix a washer dryer, right? That, like, we're not going to go out and spend a bunch of money to buy a new one. I understand. It's just a coil issue, right? It's just a motor issue, and we can swap that out. We can go to the local hardware store and get just a tiny piece of equipment for $18, and we can swap it out. There's a certain amount, and there's a dependability there with Pat Narduzzi as a partner. That, like, no, of course, he's not going to be the wittiest dude at game night. He's not going to be the life of a party. But if your tires get stuck in the mud, he's going to know how to fix that, right? He's going to know how to deal with everyday elements. And yes, you're going to have some years like 2023. I'll call it like a dad jeans year. You're like, you know how sometimes you try to update your style and you're 61 and you get a new pair of jeans and you're like, nobody over 60 should be in jeans. That just looks weird. Don't put on jeans, 61-year-old. I assume Pat Narduzzi's around 60. Like, if you saw Pat Narduzzi out and about wearing jeans, you're like, that's not the right look for you. And that's okay. And that's not his strength. His strength isn't the flash cool guy. The strength is getting a little dirty, taking care of business, and you appreciate him for what he is, not for what he isn't. Sure. Is he going to fall asleep sometimes during Wheel of Fortune? Yeah, he will. And that's not the best, right? It's still early in the night. But otherwise, the bills are paid on time. The oil's changed. That's not a euphemism. Literally, he remembers to go get the oil changed.
Right.
And there's something that, like, in a very changing world, Pat Narduzzi's going to be there to buy the Girl Scout cookies, do the everyday things that make life worth living. That's all. I don't know. I went to Girl Scout cookies, right? But you're like, you're taking care of business.
I mean, he's very self-aware.
Just don't put on those jeans, Pat.
I think he knows exactly what he is. He wears the New Balance dad shoes, the 608 or 806s, whatever they are, with pride.
They're cool now, Ty.
They're cool now. Yeah. I mean, everything's cool if you wait long enough.
Yeah.
And I just think he's got a really strong sense of self. He knows exactly what he is.
Yeah.
And
he'll say, he will say embarrassing things at, like, a wedding. Like, he'll give a toast that goes off the rails. And you're like, well, that's Pat. At least he's not wearing jeans. Yeah.
That's Pat. But that's part of the charm. That's part of the full experience.
That's true. That's true.
Part of the full experience.
An acquired taste, but dependable.
Acquired taste, but dependable. Yeah. You got anybody else?
Yeah, I got a bunch of dudes. I can go over it quickly, though. I have Lance Leipold, a whirlwind third marriage, Ty. But Lance Leipold gets along with the kids, keeps it spicy, travels, loves projects and fixing things around the house. Similar to Pat Narduzzi in that way. We're like, oh, weird. The door is squeaking a little bit. Lance Leipold's got a thing for that in his, like, tool belt.
Lance Leipold owns a chainsaw, doesn't use it that often, but knows how to if he needs to cut down a branch or something.
Correct. Lance Leipold's changing the air filter exactly how often it needs to be changed.
Right.
And you have to appreciate him for that. And look, people see that. They see how handy he is. And he gets some flirtations, Ty.
He's
people
the type
want
of guy
that in their lives.
The type of guy, I don't know if you've ever encountered somebody like this, keeps the journal in the glove box and marks down the mileage when he fills up the gas tank.
Correct. Yeah.
One of those dudes.
I have Brent Venables. Great wedding. Could tell that they were meant for each other, especially after one just went through a pretty rocky divorce. You're like, oh my God. They are ready for love once again. Oklahoma and Brent Venables. Big swings, high highs, low lows. I think they're a couple that when they're on the road and they're traveling, that's when they really grow to appreciate each other. They need to keep that spark alive. Oklahoma winning in Dallas this past year against Texas playoff team. It's meant a lot. But high highs, low lows in this moment. They just need to get to that middle ground. That's what I have for Brent Venables.
I think it's a really strong marriage. I think they're going to make it.
I have Gus Malzahn. Things are largely fine, but has habits that can be irksome. A little messy, a little disorganized around the house. He got all those 1-point losses last year. Defense got away from UCF last year, but he's dedicated to the cause, and it seems to be a really happy place for him, this second marriage, after dealing with a lot of drama in that first one.
Yeah, it seems like he's like on the HOA board now.
Yeah, good energy in that house, Ty. Good energy.
Good energy, like feeling secure,
Yeah.
maybe for the first time in forever, and now willing to kind of take the next step forward. I agree.
I have Brian Kelly, still a good amount of fire, but there's no getting around the fact that last year's holidays were rough, right? There was a rough stretch.
Burnt the turkey.
Between Thanksgiving and New Year's.
Yeah.
And that's the defense from last year. Just got away from LSU. Probably uncharacteristic. They make the needed changes, hiring in a new defensive coordinator. At the same time, though, Ty, you look at winning, Heisman winning quarterback and Jaden Daniels. Kid just got into a dream school, aced the SATs, National Merit Scholar, prom king. Something's got to be going well in that house.
Yeah,
for that to happen.
The only thing I'd say about BK is very focused on appearances to the extent where you wonder, like, is this dude a terror behind the scenes?
Yeah.
Is he like a handful, or
he's ironing the drapes, right? Going a little too much on everything. Yeah.
Yeah, like you just wonder what's actually the Brian Kelly experience. What is this person like when he's not putting up the appearances?
Yeah. That's what I have the merit. I think LSU fans are eager to see what the defense looks like this coming year. And you lose, Mike Denbrock, offensive coordinator. Yeah. But I think LSU fans, because of the way LSU started out in winning the SEC West 2 years ago now, that there's still a good amount of faith. If recruiting can climb a little bit, and get into that consistent top 5 space, top 5-ish space, that Brian Kelly, I think right now the big concern is going to be in recruiting and developing and keeping defensive players, especially DBs, after what we saw last year, and at a school so rich with DB history that we're going to need to see more in that department kind of immediately. But beyond that, if the defense is fixed and shows signs early of being fixed, I don't know who they have early on. I think they have UCLA, right? Deshaun Foster has LSU on the road. So hopefully there's some signs early on that the ship is being righted, even with coordinator changes and being active in the portal, et cetera. But I still think there's a good amount of faith and hope that LSU will be a playoff team and will cause distress for those around them. And it's also a good place, like with the Alabama thing as well.
Do you think there was a need to explain an awkward text message that he received from Ward Manuel?
Sure. Yes.
Like this, they were always going to hire Sharon Moore.
Left a winky face on Brian Kelly's Instagram page. Yeah.
Yeah, like Michigan was always going to hire Sharon Moore.
Yeah.
But you read the reports. People were wondering if there were footsies between BK and Michigan.
Yeah. I think that was Brian Kelly putting it out there, but yeah.
So maybe he is leaving the winky face on the Michigan Instagram,
sure,
not the other way around.
He has to explain a comment on LSU's friend. Like, he left something that was like borderline inappropriate comment-wise on LSU's friend's vacation photo on Instagram.
There it is.
Where it was like winky, winky, winky at like a bikini picture. And you're just like, I don't know if that was a great decision, Brian Kelly.
Yeah.
I don't know. That's all.
Anybody else?
Anybody else on my list? I have Eli Drinkwitz. This was made partner last year, right? Yeah. Rec League softball team won the championship. Everything was coming up great for Eli Drinkwitz in this marriage last year. And that's after, like, you appreciated how eager he was in this marriage, but screwed up a little bit too much. Screwed up a little, like, messed up the sink. Said a bunch of wrong things, a little bit drunk at a neighbor's backyard grill, cookout, whatever. Like, he couldn't get it right the first couple years of this marriage. No. And you started to have questions about, like, can this dude just, like, grow up a little bit? And then he did. And then he absolutely did. Recruiting has been on fire. Portal's in a really good place, like a left tackle of the future from the portal. Like, the skill talent is there. Maybe the best defensive lineman in this past class, local Williams, Anwari. There's just, it's a good place to be right now, this marriage between Eli Drinkwitz and Mizzou. And shaky start, you always appreciated the enthusiasm, but enthusiasm only goes so far when you kept saying the wrong thing, you kept breaking things, you kept, like, kind of like a backhanded compliment a little too often.
Yeah.
He got his act together. That's nice to see.
I'm surprised he didn't mention Billy Napier in Florida.
That's tough.
I feel like that has advanced to the point where maybe they're not talking about it amongst one another.
Right.
But there have at least been thoughts as to who keeps the dog if things go.
Well, see, I think I
south.
think this is a Ty and Kate situation with the telestrator where it's just like, I give it until November 2025.
Yeah.
If they get through, like you and Kate have set an over-under
right.
privately about this
I mean,
marriage.
I'll say it publicly. The over-under in this one is probably, what?
Thanksgiving 24?
Week 10, 2024,
It's a tough
Billy
schedule.
Napier?
Yeah. Most certainly is.
Doesn't seem like things are going to a good place there with Napier. And I
Not
think he's a
especially.
good coach, but might just be a really bad situation. Okay. Write in solidverbal@gmail.com. Obviously, hit us up on social media, going out to verballers.com. If you're ever so inclined, let us know what your thoughts are on the state of these and other college football marriages. It is Valentine's Day at time of recording, Dan Rubenstein. Thought it was a thematic episode to put out into the ether.
We love love.
We do love love. We are hopeless romantics at our core. That is all I have on this here episode. Did we want to do like 10 bonus minutes for the folks?
Yeah, let's do bonus minutes on how's your marriage.
We'll do bonus minutes for the folks that are our Patreon
On Ty's
subscribers.
marriage, specifically.
On Ty's marriage. How dare you? Solidverbal@gmail.com again is the email. Verballers.com again is the Patreon. Thanks for playing along with us here on this episode. Hope you and yours, wherever you may be, had, past tense now as people listen to this the day after Valentine's Day, had a wonderful Valentine's Day.
Yes.
Whether it's a thing you're into or not. Hope you just had a good day. For that guy over there, Dan Rubenstein, for myself, Ty. Talk to y'all soon. Stay solid.
Peace.